I chose psychological thriller as the genre for my opening sequence. My product both uses and challenges genre conventions through cinematography, lighting, color grading, costume, and promotional design in order to create psychological tension and emotional depth. Starting with camera shots and angles, I challenge the typical thriller convention of beginning with immediate action or danger by opening with a calm, wide establishing shot of a normal night outside the house. Cars passing by and the quiet environment suggests safety and normality, creating a sense of false security. This contrasts with the psychological tension that occurred in Ethan's house, shifting the focus from physical threat to internal conflict. This is followed by close up shots of Ethan's hands and face, emphasizing his body language and facial expressions. Instead of showing dramatic action, I focus on subtle emotional detail, encouraging the audience to engage with his mental state. This challenges conventional thriller pacing by prioritizing psychological depth over spectacle. When Nick receives a call from Ethan, the camera is placed behind Nick, withholding visual information and creating mystery. This ambiguity disrupts narrative clarity and mirrors psychological instability, which is a key convention of the genre. In terms of lighting, I was inspired by David Fincher's visual style, particularly his use of stark, high contrast lighting. While thrillers commonly use low key, shadow heavy lighting, I challenge this by employing harsh white lighting in key moments. Rather than hiding emotion in darkness, this lighting exposes facial expressions, tension, and discomfort, creating a clinical and unsettling atmosphere. This produces psychological unease rather than fear generated through darkness. In the first car scene, I use warm lighting on Ethan and white lighting on Nick, reversing typical emotional associations. Warm lighting usually signifies safety, but here it highlights vulnerability, while the white lighting on Nick suggests emotional detachment and authority, subtly subverting audience expectations. For color grading, thrillers often maintain a consistent dark or desaturated palette. I challenge this convention by using contrasting blue and warm tones to visually separate different emotional stages of the narrative. The beginning and ending are distinguished from the middle section, which focuses heavily on the conflict. This fragmented color design reflects psychological instability and emotional shifts in reinforcing the internal struggle of the protagonist. In costume design, thrillers typically use clothing to establish class, power, or dominance. However, I challenge this by dressing Nick and Ethan in contrasting styles despite their similar economic backgrounds. This creates visual juxtaposition and shifts focus away from class difference toward psychological and emotional contrast, reinforcing the theme of ability versus disability, which forms the core representation of my film. Finally, in my promotional poster, I used the line, "I promise I will not hurt you." Traditional thriller taglines often emphasize danger, threat, or violence. I challenge this convention by using an emotionally ambiguous statement, creating curiosity rather than direct fear. After watching the opening, the audience understands that this line symbolizes Ethan's inner voice and internal struggle, deepening psychological meaning and reinforcing the genre's focus on mental conflict. Overall, my product both follows and challenges psychological thriller conventions by shifting emphasis from physical danger to emotional tension, psychological depth, and internal conflict, creating a more character driven and introspective opening. The primary social group represented in my opening sequence is teenagers. Typically, teenage representation in media focuses on high school drama, romance, friendships, and social popularity, often presenting their problems as trivial or superficial. While these issues can significantly affect mental health, I challenge this narrow portrayal by presenting a teenage character whose struggles extend far beyond conventional teenage concerns. Ethan is portrayed as a well-off teenage boy, meaning his difficulties are not linked to financial hardship, academic pressure, or social conflict, which are commonly associated with teenage stress. Instead, his problems are presented as deep psychological and emotional struggles, shifting the focus from external teenage drama to internal mental conflict. This challenges stereotypical representations of teenagers as emotionally dramatic but psychologically shallow, offering a more serious, complex, and realistic portrayal of adolescent mental health. The central issue explored is mental health, particularly psychological instability, emotional isolation, and internal conflict. Although the opening sequence does not explicitly reveal the cause of Ethan's behavior, this deliberate ambiguity reflects how mental health struggles are often invisible and misunderstood. This lack of clear explanation encourages the audience to engage more deeply with his character while highlighting how individuals suffering mentally may appear outwardly normal. Through this representation, my product communicates that teenage mental health issues can be complex, serious, and deeply rooted, rather than limited to surface level social struggles. By presenting a teenage dealing with internal psychological turmoil rather than typical adolescent drama, my opening sequence encourages a more empathetic and mature understanding of teenage mental health, challenging dominant media stereotypes and offering a more nuanced portrayal of youth identity.